a few words.
Thank you, Mayor. Before tonight's meeting proceeds, I would like to briefly outline Council's expectations regarding conduct. Council meetings are formal meetings and conducted under the Local Government Act 2020 and Council's governance rules. These meetings are decision-making forums of councils and are required to be conducted in an orderly and respectful and safe manner for councillors, officers, members of the public and guests attending tonight. We welcome and encourage community engagement in a local democracy, including attendance in council meetings and participation through public questions, times and processes. However, members of the gallery are expected to observe the meeting respectfully and not interrupt proceedings. Council governance rules provides the authority for the chair to warn individual whose behaviours disrupt the meeting, if necessary, direct a person to leave the meeting to ensure proceedings can continue safely and lawfully. The borough has proudly had the motto of being the safest anchorage for seafarers, and we are all seafarers. Thank you for assisting Council to conduct its business respectfully and effectively. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Jane. Just to follow up, I would like to reinforce that council meetings are formal meetings conducted under the Local Government Act of 2020 and the council's governance rules. Everyone is welcome to attend and observe council meetings, and community participation is an important part of local democracy. However, that participation must occur respectfully and within the rules that govern these meetings. As Mayor and the Chair, I have the responsibility to ensure the meeting is conducted safely, lawfully, and without disruption. Council will be taking a zero tolerance approach to disruptive behaviour at all council meetings. Any person who interrupts proceedings, ignores directions from the chair, behaves aggressively, intimidates others, or otherwise disrupts the orderly conduct of the meeting should expect immediate action to be taken. Consequences may include formal warnings, removal from the chamber, exclusion from future meetings, restrictions on participation process, or any other actions available to council under the governance rules and the Local Government Act. These measures are not about limiting legitimate community participation or differing views. They exist to ensure council meetings can proceed safely, respectfully, and lawfully for everyone involved. Debate and differing opinions are part of democracy. Disruption and disorder are not. I asked all attendees tonight to conduct themselves appropriately and respectfully so council can carry out its responsibilities on behalf of the community. Thank you. And we can start beginning the meeting at 6:33 p.m. And I'd welcome everybody to this meeting to the Council of the Borough of Queenscliff for Wednesday the 27th of May 2026. Before we commence, this meeting is being held on the traditional lands of the Wadawurrung people. We wish to acknowledge them as the traditional custodians and pay our respects to their elders past and present, and we extend that respect to all members of our community. Now I'll declare the meeting open. Item 2, present and apologies. Officers, could you please record attendance and apologies? Note that Councillor Rule is on leave of absence. We've got Tim Crawford is an apology, and we have all other officers here in attendance and the other councillors and CEO. Thank you. Item 3, conflicts of interest disclosures. Are there any conflicts of interest to be declared in accordance with Section 130 of the Local Government Act of 2020? Not. I'll declare a conflict of interest on item 9.1, response to the petition regarding the proposed Wombat crossing in Stephen Street, Queenscliff, out the front of the Holy Trinity Church. Since I am Vice Chair of Parish Council, I declare a direct conflict on that matter, and I'll exclude myself from the chamber then. Item 4, leave of absence of councillor. There's no leave of absence request have been received. Item 5, public question time. Now, we now have to move to public question time. Public questions must relate to the matters within council's responsibilities and comply with the council's governance rules. Councils containing offensive language relating to confidential matters or staffing matters will not be accepted. Item 5.1, public questions status update. No public questions are outstanding. Item 5.2, public questions. And there appears to be only one public question for this evening, and that is from the QCA. Now, is a representative of the QCA here? Yes, sorry, sorry, David, speaking. Would you like to read your question?
We come in peace.
Yeah, thanks. David, would you like it up here and speak to your like me to read your question, or?
Yeah.
Okay. Question. Noting that council should have been prepared for renewal of its 2 cabins under its asset plan for a number of years, did council submit any applications for grant funding under the Regional Tourism Investment Fund that recently substantially upgraded cabins at Barwon Heads that also sits on Crown land? Now, I've got a response from the Manager of Customer Experience, Abby Taddison.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you for your question, David. Following a review of the Regional Tourism and Infrastructure Fund 2024 guidelines, it was determined that no projects met the program's eligibility requirements or aligned with its focus on strategic, experience-based tourism infrastructure and priority areas. In particular, the funding stream is designed to support demand-driven tourism infrastructure projects that enhance visitor experiences, increase visitation and length of stay, and align with the priority areas of First Peoples-led experiences, wellness, arts and culture, food and drink, or nature. While officers actively seek funding opportunities, there were no suitable grants on offer in 2025 to fund the current cabin replacements.
Thank you. So that was our only question. So we'll move to. No, sorry. No, David. That was the answer was quite comprehensive. Item 6, confirmation of minutes of previous meetings. 6.1, ordinary council meeting on the 22nd of April 2026. A recommendation that the minutes of the ordinary council meeting on the 22nd of April 2026 be confirmed as an accurate record. Do I have a mover? Councillor Tolhurst. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cameron. Like to speak? No. Sort of. Okay. I'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. 6.2, Audit and Risk Committee meeting of the 20th of April 2026. A recommendation that the agenda and unconfirmed minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting on the 20th of April 2026 be noted. Do I have a mover? Councillor Tolhurst. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cameron. Those all in favour? So unanimous. Thank you. Item 7, a record of informal meetings of councillors. We have item 7, record of informal meetings of councillors. A record of informal meetings of councillors is included in the adjunct to item 7. The 22nd of April 2026 Council Assembly briefings and the 13th of May 2026 Council Assembly briefing. I have a recommendation that the record of informal meetings of councillors as presented in the adjunct item 7 be noted. Do I have a mover? Councillor Monaghan. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cameron. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Item 8, notices of motion. 8.1, status update. There's no notices of motion are outstanding. Item 8.2, motions on notice. No motions on notice were received. It brings us up to item 9, petitions and joint letters. This is time 9, response to the petition regarding the proposed Wombat crossing in Stephen Street, Queenscliff. Now, prior to the consideration of this item, I wish to declare a conflict of interest in accordance with section 130 of the Local Government Act of 2020. I'll leave the chamber for this item and hand the chair to Councillor Brendan Monaghan for consideration of item 9.1.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll now assume the chair for item 9.1. Before I call for a mover to the recommendation, is there any questions regarding it to the officers? No? Rightio. So the recommendation is that Council 1 notes the petition received with a total of 21 signatures regarding the proposed Wombat crossing located on Stephen Street, Queenscliff, out front of the Catholic Church. 2, notes that Council has considered the community feedback and will proceed with the preferred alternative treatment being the installation of 2 speed humps in lieu of the proposed Wombat crossing. And 3, requests the Manager of Infrastructure and Environment to write to the authors of the petition regarding the outcome of the petition, and that an alternative road treatment is now being pursued. Can I call for a mover for that, please? Councillor Tolhurst, a seconder. Councillor Cameron, do you wish to speak? Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Monaghan. I'd just like to thank the community for taking a really considered interest in this matter and in local matters generally. And I thank you in your raised concerns for acknowledging that safety is paramount and that our children should be safe when attending school, leaving school, as should their teachers, parishioners, students and school workers. So thank you for making that at the heart of your concerns. You've been heard. I'm really comfortable with this proposal as an alternative in that it achieves good safety outcomes but also satisfies local residents, and we are still eligible for the funding that was available for such works. Thank you also to the Infrastructure and Environment team for working hard to find a solution that was amenable, perhaps we say to most, not to all. I don't know that you ever are make decisions amenable to all in council, but again, that did not lose sight of the primary goal of improved safety and that ensures we're still eligible and seen as good partners in delivery to grant funders and other arms of government. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Tolhurst. Councillor Cameron?
No, I'm fine, thanks.
No worries. In saying that, we've got a mover and a seconder. We have a vote. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Can someone grab Donnie?
Thank you, Councillor Monaghan. Now I resume the chair. We've got item 9.2. There's a petition regarding dogs in Royal Park Caravan Park. Before I call for a mover, are there any questions to the officers regarding this petition? Yeah, any questions, guys? Any councillors? I'm going to ask, do we know who is presenting this? Who presented this petition? No. So we do know who we will be responding to. We haven't got so okay. You just consider. Yes, I know. It's like we're just considering. Yeah, just considering this regarding this. Maybe we have the petition up on the screen, and maybe can the officers, we'll just highlight, because it's a very unusual petition that's been brought before us, because we don't know who, we can't ask no one, normally we would have somebody come, like last week, we'd have somebody come up and speak to it and present. So, we are only gathering, so maybe an officer might have some ideas of, can the officers please outline the current rationale behind the existing no dog policy within Royal Park Caravan Park? Now, just remind you, this we are not currently, we're only asking questions and we're not making any determination.
Thank you, Mayor. Council officers are not aware of the historical decision behind Royal Park being dog-free. However, all council-run caravan parks are dog-free over peak periods. The sites within our parks are within close proximity and occupancy is at its maximum, so not allowing dogs during these busy times is to minimise risk to council and to also ensure that all campers enjoy their stay.
Okay, maybe it's another question. Have officers considered impacts on other caravan park users, including visitors who may expect a dog-free environment?
Yes, the impacts on park users is always front of mind when we make decisions within our parks. And whilst for many people their dogs are a big part of their lives and they would like to take them everywhere, we also have a large portion of our camping community that maybe don't want to have dogs when they go camping. And sometimes they have family members that are actually frightened of dogs. We feel that providing 3 dog-friendly parks outside of peak season and having one park that's solely no dogs is a good mix within our parks.
Yeah, thank you. So, do you have another?
I'd actually like to propose a motion that we defer consideration, even laying of the table of this petition, until we establish an owner of the petition. While our governance rules do not require it, I think it's impossible to consider the elements of it and come up with a response that's meaningful if we have no idea who submitted it, and I think that should be established to councillors and in the report before we proceed. So my motion is to propose deferring consideration of laying the petition on the table until we have an owner established.
Point of order, Councillor Tolhurst, if I may. The governance rules state that council must lay it on the
Table.
unless they choose to consider it earlier. So my understanding of our governance rules, my interpretation is that your motion is not to.
Yes. So we have a recommendation, unless another councillor has a following a motion of themselves, that council receives the petition regarding no dog policy on Royal Park Caravan Park, that lays it on the table until the next ordinary meeting of council, which is in June. Do I have a mover? Councillor Monaghan. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cameron. Like to speak to it? No? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Put it to a vote. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Item 10, functions attended. Councillors, are there any functions attended to be recorded, additional functions to be attended to be recorded at this evening? Are there any changes to the document? Okay, and if that's the case, then that the recommendation that the information contained in the functions attended report be noted. Do I have a mover? Councillor Tolhurst. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cameron. Put that to a vote. Unanimous, thank you. Item 11, Chief Executive Officer. The item 11.1, the CEO report for May 2026. I invite the CEO to briefly speak to the report.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. I'll start off with the proposed Coles development, and I know how important this is to the community. Just to let you know that our senior planners have been meeting with the City of Geelong, Greater Geelong, on a regular basis to find a way forward and a strategic way forward. We also have been meeting with key advocacy groups to understand their concerns and partner with them. The council, we are meeting with a number of people next week, and a briefing will be brought to Assembly, our next Assembly, which is on the 9th of June, to make sure we're very clear around the next steps, and they are strategic next steps that will actually have an impact. I will cluster a couple of these together. I think it's really important that we've had really 2 successful meetings with the Finance Committee meeting, which was an outcome of the Audit and Risk Committee. It was around financial sustainability, and it was about making sure that we have a group of suitably people that are qualified to pressure test some of our thinking. I'm really proud to say that we have 3 people ranging from auditors to chartered accountants and who have got deep breadth and depth of finance. And we had our first meeting on the 7th of April, and on the 7th of April we talked about the terms of reference and the strategic intent of that meeting and their role. And the strategic of the intent of that meeting is to put another lens and look at specific projects which are outside our normal purview, and to look at the financial analysis and pressure test the thinking to recommend to the councillors around potential next steps. So on the 20th of May, we had a briefing, and our Chief Financial Officer provided an overview and guided the Finance Committee through key concepts as well as key legislation. The committee looked at the budget, and we wanted to make sure that they're really up to speed for 2028 budget, but also too they looked at one of the proposals that are currently considering in the draft budget, which is the 2 cabins. They certainly pressure tested, and there was an absolute endorsement for the next steps with regard to that project. We also know that we're in Assembly in 2 weeks' time. We'll be really pressure testing the draft budget again, and thank you for the feedback that's been provided. We've received a small targeted amount of feedback, and there has been no surprises, but we really want to thank the people for their participation and their feedback, and I know that the councillors will take that into consideration in their deliberation. And the last one I'd like to highlight is just what a splendid week last week was, Volunteers Week. When you think about the borough and the amount of people that volunteer and the amount of events that occurred, it was really spoke of community to me and community intent. Two groups or 2 people, Paul Fahey, who was Citizen of the Year and a quiet achiever for the last 21 plus years he's been in the borough, and he was absolutely delighted. And the other the Community Organisation of the Year. Well, it was no surprise. It was given to 2 groups. The Coast Guard, our Coast Guards, it was a VF09, I want to make sure I get that right, and the Point Lonsdale Surf Lifesaving Club for that amazing rescue with 17 swimmers and 3 kayakers. And it really spoke again of volunteerism and working together collaboratively. So it was a really great week, and congratulations to our volunteers and all of them, not the ones that were acknowledged. Those thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions for the CEO? So it's Councillor Cameron. It's Councillor Monahan.
Probably just before we get to the recommendation, Jane, could you just give a bit of a rundown on the QMPAC?
Museums.
Yeah,
the museum. They had They've met twice, had a discussion around terms of engagement, and they came to a decision that they will steward their own organisation. And certainly the next steps with regard to that is that we will have regular contact, as previously we have engaged with them. So it was decided, they decided mutually that they were going to keep as separate entities.
Okay, do we have a recommendation? Oh, yeah, sorry. Oh, I haven't. Okay, so I just, before you move on, the recommendation that Council receives the CEO report for May 2026 to resolve the Queenscliff Museum's Partnership Advisory Committee, committee to request the CEO write to the committee members thanking them for their service, and 3, congratulates and thanks the Coast Guard, the Australian Volunteer Coast Guard, VF9, Queenscliff, for their wonderful 50 years of service to our community, and ratify the giving of the keys of the city at the event held on the 19th of May 2026. Other mover, Councillor Tolhurst. Seconder, Councillor Cameron. All those in favour? Oh yes, you want to speak to it? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. It feels hugely duplicating the CEO's comments, but I really would like to acknowledge, Jane, this is an incredibly comprehensive report, and thank you. This detail is great for councillors and the community. Excellent news about e-waste alongside hard waste. These are really valuable services for our community. I'd also like to, as the temporary chair of the Finance Committee, thank them for their work so far. This, as you can see, or the agenda presents the summary of the first meeting, and it's important to note that the Finance Committee didn't play an active role in the development of the 2026-27 draft budget, but they are already providing exceptional rigour in line with their terms of reference on the financial matters presented to them. So I do thank them for their contributions so far. Similarly, our service reviews, the first of which is aged care provision, are significant pieces of work that will and should rightly involve the community. Council will continue to provide these updates about the progress of this review and notify the community when they can be involved. So I do urge people, if they have an interest or have experienced the service and want to be part of this process, to stay tuned to this. And finally, as you recognised, Mayor and CEO, a big thank you to our community and events teams and all involved in delivering what was a really sensational event. There was such an evident buzz there. People connecting who maybe aren't always in the room or in the same room together, and learning from each other. And it's important that we recognise the best in each other and the wonderful community that makes up and sustains the borough. So to the team and the attendees and of course the winners, thank you very much.
So, Councillor Cameron, you, as the seconder, would you like to? No. To put it to a vote, do we have any? All those in favour? Thank you, unanimous. Item 12, building the borough, the 12.1 planning activity report. Before I call the mover, are there any questions to the Officer of Bryden King, who's our senior planner? Councillor Tolhurst.
Thanks, Bryden. I'd like to know, in addition to what's been provided in the paper, just a little bit about the planning scheme amendments or changes that are noted here. So VC 300, the mid-rise code, and VC 248 around bushfire planning provisions, please. And their relevance to Queenscliff, obviously.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Tolhurst. In terms of the VC amendments, these are amendments that the state government's changing the planning system across Victoria. The state government's doing a lot of change to the planning system across Victoria at the moment, and that's heading on into 2027 when there's some big fundamental changes under the Act happening, which is about streamlining planning permits into different streams. And we'll talk with community and council about that when we know more about that development of that, which is occurring at the moment in terms of what the regs are going to say. In terms of VC 300, there's been the implementation of a new code, or a deemed to comply code, that's dealing with buildings that are 4 stories to 6 stories high. and that's been rolled out across Victoria. The influence of that document is basically nothing in the borough of Queenscliff, as there are mandatory height controls that prevent 4 to 6 storey buildings being developed in the borough. So as an officer, I haven't taken any time to read that document in detail, as its relevance is very limited, but it's going to play a key role in some of the areas in Melbourne and so on where that form of development is being encouraged, and you've probably hear about that in the media in different places where other councils are dealing with that problem. And Geelong. The VC 248 amendment is an amendment that has attempted to try and deal with a perceived gap in how you assess bushfire risk for accommodation, dwelling development and other development for vulnerable people that might be nursing homes and the like. There's 2 bushfire controls. One's called a bushfire management overlay. That's the heavy lifting overlay that deals with most of the major bushfire risk. That's mapped in parts of the borough of Queenscliff. And then there's a bushfire prone area, which is the lesser grading of bushfire risk. Traditionally, if building a house in the bushfire prone area that is not in the bushfire management overlay would have required some processes through the building permit process, getting what's called a bushfire attack level assessment and building your building in a particular way to manage that lower risk. This change has highlighted that now people have to, if you're getting a planning permit for any other reason, my editorial quickly is it's not a great control and it's very confusing the way it's been written, and there's feedback going back into the government about that. But the control at the moment is written so that if you're getting a planning permit for any other reason under our DDOs or our heritage overlays and you're in the bushfire prone area only, you will need to do some extra work about how that site and building is going to manage the bushfire risk, which will be a short report against some criteria that they've listed. If you're in the bushfire prone area and you are not getting a planning permit for any other reason, you don't have to do that. So it's an unequal control at the moment, the way it's written.
There'll be a corrective,
Maybe. So at the moment, that's the way it's written, and there are no transition provisions, so all councils have to try and factor that into any decisions they're making at the moment, where the bushfire prone area is impacting a building. So that's unfortunate because some applicants are having to do a little bit more work now to respond to that new control when they didn't have to do that previously. Having said all that, its impact is minimal at the moment. Not for the actual individuals who have to do that extra bit of work, but we are working through getting that more streamlined, and there is some clarity coming through with the discussions that are occurring between councils and with bushfire consultant experts about how to do that reporting against this new provision efficiently.
Do we have many, or can you name the number of bushfire prone areas?
I can't. I'll try and describe it this way. Most of the bushfire management overlay areas around the edge against the foreshore areas where the fuel load is. So if you think of a mapping sense, the bushfire management overlays along the coast. So let's say the Esplanade in Queenscliff, Point Lonsdale Road, down to Ocean Road, and then the bushfire prone areas are north and west of those areas, if that makes sense, for probably 500 metres or so in from the edge of the bushfire management overlay areas. So coming in from the coast a little bit. So it will affect maybe a few hundred properties or a bit less maybe. Yeah.
Just before you go, Bryden, sorry. Sorry. On the planning report, we've got the properties 61 Hesse Street. It's just reference that Is that Oceania or is that the farm foods? I'm just
No, you're correct. It's Oceania.
Oceania.
Yes. And so that building sits behind Hesse Street, if you like, or behind the the dentist building and so on. It's tucked behind there at the end of the laneway, and they're doing a small extension to the southern side, which is the building's already there and they're rechanging.
So it's just saying because there's not much details regarding the proposal on the application, just as alterations, extensions to the existing dwelling.
So it's an area of the building, not the main historic building,
okay.
and it's got the main historic building exists, and they've got a two-storey extension on the western side and the southern side.
Yes.
Then they've got a small rotunda and a deck.
Yes. Yep.
The rotunda and the deck they're filling in.
Okay. That's
Yes.
fine. So, okay. Thank you.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, can I also take the opportunity? Last council meeting, there was a question raised about the appeal at 1 Bowen Road.
Yes.
And to update councillors on the progression of that. That went to a mediation meeting today that I attended. The details in the mediation are confidential and without prejudice, so I won't go into that detail. There wasn't actually able to be a resolution today, but the discussions are continuing between the parties, and the tribunal's given some extra time till early July to see if resolution can be found between the parties, and there's certain steps that have to go through. So that's promising, and there's a full hearing planned in August if that doesn't eventuate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry, Bryden. I should just give you a roving mic or a
that's all
Madonna
right, that's all
headphone
right.
or something. This is a question that pertains to the entire planning report every month, and that is, I am aware, the Planning and Environment Act is under review. Can you talk to any of the changes that are either emerging from that or when the review is anticipated to be complete and the likely impacts for us? Granted, that's a big question and with potentially many drastic impacts.
Yes, it's a big question, Councillor Tolhurst, but the summary might be that there are some changes that the review has happened to a certain... So there's more review about the Planning Environment Act happening, but there has been some agreed changes to happen to the Planning Environment Act, and part of those changes have been smaller, minor details about planning scheme amendments when you rezone land, whether you can get different processes about how panels are held and how submitters to those processes are heard, and creating different streams of that. So complicated matters will go through the normal stream we're familiar with, but more simpler matters can have a more streamlined path. And then following on from that theory is that by the end of 2027, there is a outcome where there will be 3 streams in the planning permit process, which would mean there's simple planning permits. Think of the Vic Smart planning permits that councillors may have heard of, which are for straightforward matters that are relatively minor, and they'll have a streamlined pathway that potentially doesn't have notice, etc. Then there'll be a standard pathway that we're familiar with notice and review rights, but maybe more refined review rights to the tribunal, and then there's a complex pathway. Now, the detail of all those 3 pathways is not clear yet, and that is what is actually being discussed and detailed about the devil in that detail that will inform how those work. And there's also a big ticket item about changing those 3 pathways, or having 3 pathways of planning permit process, how individual councils across Victoria, their I'm losing the word, their computer systems, for want of a better, the way they track planning permits. We use Greenlight here. Other councils have Greenlight and other councils have other systems again. How all those systems can be modified to manage the data and the process in a way that's reflecting these changes, and how can the state help that happen for all the councils, rather than individual councils trying to go to their proprietors and say, can you change this and do this? So there's some big matters about how councils can be helped to adjust to those transitions, as well as what the actual transition detail is going to look like. So we'll need to, as that progresses, keep all the relevant parties up to date.
Thank you.
Is there a thought?
So there's no debate from the gallery, thank you, or discussions. Got a recommendation that Council receives the CEO report from May 2026. Oh no, sorry, not Chief, sorry, Building Barrow. Oops, sorry, right. We got lost track with all the questions, sorry. Okay, we have a recommendation that the Council planning permit activity report be received. Do I have a mover? Councillor Cameron. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Tolhurst. All those in favour? Thank you. Item, that was 12.1, sorry. We're up to 12, oh well there's no 12.2, we're up to 12.3, the planning application of PA 2024-025 at 18 Lee Esplanade, Queenscliff, amended plans. Given the significance of this application, I'll invite the officer to briefly outline the amended plans and recommendation before calling for a mover. Bryden King, would you like to speak to this, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The council will be aware that there's an ongoing VCAT matter to do with 18 the Esplanade, and that process is due for a full hearing, and we've been through some mediation, which is the compulsory conference. That didn't result in any resolution to the overall matters. However, the permit applicant has, I'll go back one step. Council, in its decision, formed the view that the proposal for a third storey at 18 the Esplanade would not be supported on two factors. One is that the building is not a three-storey building at the moment and therefore can't have a third storey added to it under the provisions of the neighbourhood residential zone. So the first element is that it's prohibited to have a third storey on this building under the zone control. And the second point was, if there was the ability to have a third storey, the third storey in the plans that council decided was too large and of a scale that was inconsistent with the principles in the Design and Development Overlay Schedule 3, which is a neighbourhood character-based overlay. As a result of the mediation process through VCAT, the permit applicant has formally lodged some amended plans at the tribunal, so that those plans will now be the plans that are before the tribunal for a decision. And those plans have significantly reduced the scale of the third storey proposed at 18 the Esplanade. And that third scale has been reduced by reducing the overall scale of the building in the north-south direction and having a very small room at the upper level. Instead of having a bedroom and the additional rooms that it had, it's only got one room now, and it's sitting very much within the roof space of the upper level. So the proposition that's being put through this report is that those plans are now before the tribunal, and council needs to form a view whether it still is of the view that those plans are contrary to the Design and Development Overlay 3, whilst still maintaining the principle or the refusal ground that it's prohibited under the neighbourhood residential zone. So council can maintain its, the recommendation from officers is maintain the argument that the proposal is prohibited under the neighbourhood residential zone. If the tribunal finds that it is not prohibited, the amended plans and the significantly reduced third storey from an officer perspective is considered to be consistent with the design and development overlay and could be reasonably supported on that basis. So no longer, the recommendation is to no longer argue that the modified building is inconsistent with the design and development overlay 3. So that's an evolving, that's a thing that's changed out of the mediation. So these are different plans than what council originally saw. And the opportunity is for council to consider whether it wants to adjust its refusal grounds on that basis of the amended plans.
Councillors, are there any questions to Bryden King on this? Is it? I have one question. At the end, at the hearing, then, can the applicant still submit another plan?
So the time frames, the tribunal has protocols for lodging amended plans, and you need to follow steps in terms of notifying parties, giving parties the opportunity to do what we're doing tonight. So there's a set procedure that you have to follow to amend plans. So you can't arrive at the VCAT hearing with amended plans and ask everyone to do that. From a fairness perspective, people won't have had the opportunity to consider those, reform positions, maintain positions, etc. So the opportunity that's been given through the mediation process was that this step of amended plans needed to be done in this time frame that is now happening, and a position needs to be formed, and then those will be the plans through you, Mr Mayor, that are considered by the tribunal as they're lodged now. So I think I've confirmed in the previous item. So the report as written for 18 the Esplanade at item 12.3 was referencing without prejudice plans, because that's how they were lodged at the time. In the previous item, no, sorry, my apologies, I haven't done that, but those plans have formally been lodged with the tribunal on the, if I've got that available here, 22nd of May. Okay. So they are now the formal plans that are before, the plans that you have in the agenda are now the formal plans that are before the tribunal.
And the hearing will be scheduled for the 7th and 8th of July.
Correct. Based on those amended plans. Yes, as are in your agenda pack.
Councillors, are there any other questions? Do I have a recommendation? Is there an alternative motion? A motion, sorry. Okay, then the recommendation that council in relation to the Esplanade Queenscliff Planning Permit Application PA 2024-054, 1, no longer argues that the proposed extension is inconsistent with the provisions of the Design and Development Overlay Schedule 3, based on plans. Subsequently, in accordance with the plans dated the 6th of May 2026, Revision 4, marked without prejudice, issued for discussion, being formally lodged with VCAT as amended plans, and 2, maintains that the proposal is prohibited and it is contrary to the mandatory controls related to stories at clause 32.09-11 of the Neighbourhood Residential Zone. Do I have a mover? Councillor Tolhurst. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Monaghan. Like to speak?
Always. Thanks, Bryden and team, for your comprehensive briefing on this. I am supportive of the motion before us, recognising that the plans do not change the fundamental part of Council's argument that the attic is not a story. The argument now put to VCAT via revised plans does try to address part of Council's original argument and objection, and some of the objector concerns. Perhaps some are here tonight, but certainly we know they've been at VCAT as well. But in my view, that has not achieved, has not fully satisfied Council's concerns, and hence my support for this revised motion. Go forth, enjoy VCAT.
Councillor Monaghan? No, we'll put this to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? No, it's a unanimous vote for the recommendation. Thank you. Item 13, running the borough. Item 13.1, review of council policies CPO 17 risk management. I invite the officer to briefly speak to the proposed revisions of the council policy CP 17 risk management.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The risk management policy that is being considered today is part of the set of documents which shape the entire risk management process of the council. So in that entire process, we have the risk management policy, risk management framework, strategic risk register, and then operational risk registers. So if you take the risk management policy, which is very much set the tone for this entire process, because that define the risk appetite of council. In other words, that define the level of the risk that council willing to accept in pursuing its council objectives. So in line with the new council plan, so this policy has gone through a very comprehensive review process. Even the council's audit and risk committee reviewed and provided feedback about those changes twice during this review process. The key changes have been summarized on page 35 of this agenda paper, and as stated, one of the key changes that in the policy, council has identified a separate risk category for built environment, which include all built assets as well as the heritage characteristic of those built assets. If you look at the proposed policy, the revised policy, so council has set low risk appetite for all of those risk categories except for the financial risks, which has been proposed a medium risk appetite. Councillors, the recommendation is on page 33.
Thank you. Do we have, before we go to recommendations, councillors, are there any questions to the officer? No? Okay, thank you. So the recommendation that council adopts the revised council policy CPO 17, risk management as presented. Do I have a mover? Councillor Tolhurst. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Monahan. All those in favour? Yes, thank you. Passed unanimously, thank you. Item 14, questions without notice. We'll now move to the questions without notice. There's no questions, thank you. Item 15, list of council meetings. The following council meetings are scheduled. Planning review meeting for Wednesday, the 10th of June 2026 at 6:30 p.m. if required. We've got the next ordinary meeting of council on Wednesday, the 24th of June at 6:30 here at the Queenscliff Hub. Thank you. Item 16, and we've moving to the closed session of the meeting. The meeting is required to be closed to members of the public in accordance with the section 66(2)(a) of the Local Government Act 2020. Council will consider the following confidential item. 16.1 contract 2026-03 heating, ventilation and air conditioning tender for the council offices at 50 Learmont Street, Queenscliff. This matter is considered confidential under the section 3(1)(g) of the Local Government Act 2020, as it contains private commercial information relating to the tender and contractual documentation, which, if released, would be unreasonably exposed a business or commercial undertaking to disadvantage. So I'd move to close this meeting. The local government moves into the council moves into confidential session and closes the meeting to members of the public in accordance with the section 66(2)(a) of the Local Government Act to consider item 6.1. Do I have a mover? Yep. Councillor Monahan. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Tolhurst. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you. And I thank the gallery for attending tonight.
Thank you.